Most of us learned, very young, that some feelings are welcome and some aren't. And the one almost nobody seemed to know what to do with was grief. We watched the adults around us put on a face. Maybe yours said, "It's going to be okay," when it clearly wasn't. Maybe yours said nothing at all, just kept moving, kept cooking, kept smiling in a way that didn't reach their eyes. And without a single word being spoken, you learned the rule. Something has been lost. But we don't talk about it. We don't cry about it. We act like it didn't happen. So your grief didn't go away. It went somewhere else. It went into you. This is the story of where it went and what it actually takes to let it out. If you've found this channel before, you know the contract. This is a true story. Mine. No face. No name. Not because I'm hiding, but the moment this becomes about me, it stops being about you. This time, I want to talk about something I carried for most of my life before I even knew its name. Grief is unusual. Most feelings can be processed alone. You can be angry by yourself. You can be ashamed by yourself. But grief needs to be witnessed. It needs another body in the room to say, yes, this happened. Yes, it was real. Yes, you can fall apart. When that doesn't happen, and for a child, it often doesn't, the grief doesn't go away. It changes shape. It becomes a tightness in the chest you can't trace, a dread that lives in the body without a name, a sleeplessness, a restlessness, a vigilance that never lets you rest. You'll spend years trying to name it. You'll call it anxiety. You'll call it depression. You'll call it sensitivity or oversensitivity or the way I just am. But underneath all those names is grief that never got to leave the body. Here's what almost no one tells you about being a child in a house of grief. A child without language for grief doesn't grieve their own loss. They can't. They have no word for it. They have no idea what just happened. What they do is something else entirely. They feel everyone. A child's body is open, permeable. It doesn't know yet where its own feelings end and someone else's begin. So when the adults around you are holding you, holding it together for your sake, or falling apart in their grief, your body absorbs what theirs are carrying. The mother who tried so hard to be okay, the grandmother who couldn't stop crying, the aunts and uncles who kept the visits short because the room got too heavy. You felt all of them, and without knowing it, without choosing it, you became something no child should ever become, quietly responsible for the emotional weather of the adults around you. That's where it began for me. Before I could even speak the word father, I had already learned that other people's feelings were my job to carry. Once you've absorbed someone else's grief, the next thing you do is protect them from yours. You learn to read the room before you speak. You learn to swallow the questions that might make the room heavier. You stop reaching for what you actually need. For me, that took a very specific shape. I never asked about my father, not once. Not because I wasn't curious. I was a child who had lost her dad before she could even hold a memory of him. Of course I was curious. I just learned somehow that asking would hurt my mother, that if I brought him up, her face would change, that if I said his name, she would have to go somewhere quiet for a little while. So I stopped asking. I gave up knowing him to protect her from remembering him. And that's the thing no one explains about being a small child in a house of unspoken grief. You don't just lose the person who died. You lose your right to even ask about them. You lose the part of yourself that wanted to know. A child should never have to choose between her own questions and her mother's grief. But many of us did. Quietly, without realizing, before we even knew what we were doing. Something finally shifted when I was in my second therapy. Not from understanding, not from reading. I had been understanding things my whole life to keep from feeling them. It shifted because she said something so simple, I didn't know what to do with it. You need to grieve. You can cry. You're allowed. That was it. No technique, no exercise, just permission. I sat there trying to figure out what to do with that sentence, because no one had ever said it to me before. Not the people who held me when I was a baby, not the mother I was trying not to hurt. The unspoken rule had always been the opposite. Hold it together. Keep it light. Don't be the one who makes the room go quiet. And then a stranger across from me gave me permission to do the thing I had needed to do all my life. So I did. I cried in a way I had never cried before. Not pretty, not controlled. Old grief, finally moving. And what I didn't expect, my body got lighter. Not metaphorically, physically lighter. Like something I had been carrying had been set down in a room where it was finally safe to leave it. The crying gave me something, but it didn't give me everything. Because grief that finally moves still leaves you with the pattern that kept it stuck in the first place. The pattern that said, her feelings are mine to manage. Her sadness is mine to prevent. Her grief is mine to soften before she even feels it. Releasing the grief wasn't enough. I had to release the job. That came later, slowly. It started with one sentence my therapist asked me that I couldn't immediately answer. Whose feelings are these? When I said something true about my own life, about how I felt, what I needed, what had hurt, and my mother had a reaction to it, my whole body had been trained to take her reaction back into myself and try to fix it, to soften the sentence, to add a but, to make her okay so I could feel okay again. That's what protecting an adult does to a child who never stopped being one. The work was learning that her feelings about my truth were hers, not mine. Not even when she was sad. Not even when she was hurt. Not even when she was the person I had spent my whole life trying not to hurt. I love her, but it isn't my job to protect her from what I feel. Those are her feelings. These are mine, and they can both be true in the same room. There's one more thing I've come to understand. I don't remember much of my childhood. Not in pieces I can trace. Not in stories I can tell. One thing I've learned is that this is common. Many people who experience loss or trauma early in life remember surprisingly little. Your mind hides what it couldn't carry. The memory goes somewhere. It just doesn't go where you can reach it with your thinking mind. It goes into the body. That's why the work has to be in the body too. You can't talk your way back to something the mind locked away. But you can let the body finish what it never got to finish then. You can grieve. You can let the held thing move. And slowly, much more slowly than you'd like, some of what was hidden begins to surface, not as memory, as release. If any of this lands in you, if you're carrying grief that no one ever let you put down, if you became the keeper of feelings that were never yours, you're not the only one. There is work that moves it. It doesn't have to be the work I did, but there is work. The body knows. The body has been waiting. Subscribe if you want to walk with me. What we carry, we did not choose, but we don't have to carry it alone.